the wife of convicted drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is due in court after she was arrested on drug trafficking charges.
2007, they got married. Emma, the beauty queen, and El Chapo, the most feared drug lord in the world. For years, they ruled with money, power, and no limits. But empires fell, and their fairy tale ended in handcuffs. For both of them, this is what happens when drug lords have fun with female inmates.
Identificada o conocida en el argot policial como la Reina del Sur, responde al nombre de Cristel Gómez Espinosa. Ella fue aprendida como consecuencia de una operación.
2016, while in prison, Cristel Yariela Gómez Espinosa met and fell hard for Irving Guido Toruno, better known as El Gringo, powerful drug lord in Costa Rica's criminal underworld. Oh, they had some fun, lived fast, and loved fiercely. But in this world, nothing lasts. Just a year later, El Gringo was found brutally murdered, stabbed 139 times, and left as a warning on the side of a road. Most would have run, fled this dangerous world, but Cristel didn't. Instead, she stepped into the power vacuum, taking over her late lover's drug empire, and earning herself the infamous nickname Lena Delsur, the Queen of the South. Now, before all the headlines, the manhunts, and the drama, who was Cristel? January 5th, 1995, born into the game, Cristel Gómez never really stood a chance at normal. She was raised in La Cuesta by her father, Alberto Gómez Calderon, a drug trafficker with deep ties to smuggling routes throughout Panama. Cristel had front row seats to the underworld from the start. She would drop out of school as a teenager to help run the family business and become a mother of two by the age of 17. Criminal world wouldn't be just around her, it was her entire world. 2015, Cristel was arrested for transporting 15 kilos of heroin. She's found guilty and handed a 15-year sentence, but her lawyers pushed for a retrial, and in 2017 she's acquitted. Still, prison had already changed the course of her life. While inside, a friend introduced her to El Gringo. Cristel fell hard for him, and the two began dating while she was still behind bars. She would walk free in 2017 and thought maybe, just maybe, she was headed for her happily ever after. But life had other plans. Just 6 months later, El Gringo's brutally killed by rivals, struck by grief, and perhaps driven by something deeper. Cristel didn't walk away. Instead, she stepped into his shoes, taking over his gang, and kept the drugs flowing north. She would orchestrate attacks and manage smuggling operations with chilling precision, as if El Gringo himself were still alive. Police began chasing her across borders, always worried she might vanish into Panama. Interpol had also issued a red notice, but she managed to evade their capture multiple times, and the rumors of plastic surgeries and attempts to change her identity only deepened the myth of Lena Delsur. In 2019, Cristel's luck finally ran out. On what was supposed to be this ordinary shopping trip, Cristel, unexpectant mother, was browsing for maternity clothes in a mall in Palmar Norte, having no idea that her empire was about to collapse. But a tipster spotted her and called the police. When officers got there, they asked for her ID. Cristel claims that she left it at home, and that's all they needed. She's quietly detained on the spot. The trial that followed was anything but ordinary. July 2021, chaos erupts in the courtroom, with rival gang members, including some of Cristel Gómez's co-defendants, break out into a violent brawl in front of stunned judges, delaying the trial. The fight happened after one of the accused, believed to be the one who had betrayed El Gringo to a rival gang, entered the room. And then in January 2022 came one of the strangest moments of all. Court would allow Cristel's fellow defendants to sing her happy birthday and eat cake to mark her 27 years on this planet. For a moment, it almost looked like the glamorous cartel life followed her right into prison. The fun wouldn't last for too long, because in November 2022, Cristel's given 19 years in prison, along with 23 other members of her gang. As the sentences read out, members of her crew are screaming threats and insults at the judge. Some even said they would defecate on his mother, but this wouldn't stop Cristel from being dragged out of the courtroom in chains. And this time, there's no retrial or acquittal waiting on the other side. Now, the next woman on this list also had her share of fun with a drug lord until he was murdered. And just like Cristel, that one moment flipped her entire world upside down. August 2019, the streets of Krakow, Poland were heavy with flashing police lights, the weight of an Interpol red notice, and whispered rumors of a mysterious woman on the run. And despite all that, Magdalena Kraka, the woman Interpol would soon label as one of Europe's most wanted, managed to vanish without a trace. But her story started long before this manhunt. Magdalena Kraka wasn't always a crime boss. Once, she was just another face of chaotic Polish football hooliganism. Hardcore fans, proving their loyalty off the field and into brutal street battles, settling scores with their fists, bloodshed, and fear. But everything changed when she met Adrian Zelona, a notorious drug lord. Magdalena wasn't just attracted to him, she was pulled into his world of crime and danger. Their time together was short, though. When Adrian was gunned down by police in this violent raid, Magdalena didn't run from that chaos. She stepped right into that void he left behind. 2018, this blonde, sharp-witted Krakow native had taken over her boyfriend's role. She was handling money, drugs, the works. Authorities said she'd helped move over 65 kilos of cocaine and cannabis across Europe. And when gang members were on the run, guess who helped them hide? Yeah, Magdalena. She would even pull in new recruits to keep the crew alive. Now, for a while, life was, let's just say, interesting. Fast cars, expensive outfits, power, you can imagine. But for all the fun and swagger that comes with cartel living, Magdalena was about to fall from grace hard and become one of Europe's most notorious female inmates. After police raids forced her to flee in 2019, she vanished into thin air, slipping through the borders and evading capture for 6 years. But the high never lasts, because in 2025, Magdalena's finally caught in Slovakia and extradited back to Poland. Now you think her story would end with a harsh penalty to match everything she'd done, right? Surprisingly, no. Now, she was recently handed just 3.5 years behind bars and a fine less than 5,000 euros. Now, the Polish judges said that she wasn't technically the leader, but merely just following orders from her former boss, Mariusz Z, who got 10 years. Yeah, cops and prosecutors were stunned. They knew she was as much of a leader as that other guy, maybe even more. People joked, said that she had some guardian angels or just really good lawyers, maybe both. Either way, Magdalena's story's a perfect reminder that for cartel players, the so-called fun is always on borrowed time. Sure, she ran from the law, outsmarted police across borders, had a lot of fun with cartel leaders, and lived a wild life for years. But in the end, the party ended with some kind of prison time, I guess. Proving that in this world, even fun may come with some kind of price. 2014, Melissa Calderon Oeda, better known as La China, looked like she was winning the game. Fast money, loyal soldiers, power, and a man who shared her fire. Now her partner, Dr. Pedro Camarena Gomez, known as El Chino, wasn't just her second in command, but her ride or die, both in life and war. Together they ran a brutal breakaway faction of the Sinaloa Cartel, building their own little empire, California Sur Cartel. They had each other's backs, blood on their hands, and a network of dirty cops at their feet. But as we've seen time and time again, even the wildest cartel love stories come crashing down. Now the so-called fun usually ends the moment someone talks or dies. In Melissa's case, it's both. Before she's dragged out of a hotel in cuffs, crying and exhausted, Melissa was one of the most feared women in Mexico's drug world. Born back in '84, she would join the Damaso wing of the Sinaloa Cartel around 2005 and quickly rise through their ranks. 2008, she's already leading operations in La Paz and Los Cabos, heading up a kill squad with more than 50 hitmen under her command. And let's just say Melissa didn't just give orders. She set examples. Authorities link her to over 150 murders, many committed brutally and marked by gruesome tactics. Her victims would be tortured, dismembered. Their remains are left at the doors of relatives. I mean, she sent messages with bodies. That's who La China was. Her path to power started with her first love, Eric Davalos von Borstel, another powerful figure whose name she had tattooed right there on her arm. But tragedy would strike. 2014, La China's superiors within the Sinaloa Cartel ordered her to step down. They wanted Abel Naum Quintero Manares, known as El Grande, a high-security op freshly out of prison, to take her place. Yeah, she refused. So they sent a message, the way only cartels know how, killing her boyfriend, Eric Davalos. That was the turning point. Melissa breaks away from the cartel, takes El Chino as her new partner, and declares war. So they find California Sur Cartel, recruit over 300 members, and quickly earned a reputation for terror. Oh, they roamed the streets like they owned them, often riding their signature red motorcycles. The biggest weapon wouldn't be firepower, but protection. Corrupt cops often fed them intel, erased their footprints, and made sure they disappeared whenever things got too hot. But this kind of protection couldn't last forever. June 2015, El Chino's arrested, and in a surprising twist, he snitched on his own lover to save himself, and he gives up everything, talking locations to safe houses, names, even WhatsApp chats where Melissa appeared under the alias Matilda. But that's not all. Soon, others followed. Melissa's closest allies admitted that they were underpaid and fed up, as she had promised them salaries that never came. 3 months later, on September 19, 2015, 2015, Melissa's flagged at Cabo San Lucas Airport while trying to flee to Mexico under a fake name. Now, she may have missed her flight and tried to lay low in a nearby hotel, but she was identified through surveillance footage. During the arrest, she reportedly broke down and told officers she was tired. She also said she feared for her life, and maybe for the first time, the infamous La China didn't feel quite untouchable anymore. 2024, after years of legal proceedings and conflicting versions of her conviction, Melissa was officially sentenced to 20 years in prison for aggravated homicide. El Chino, her once lover and second-in-command, got 10. In the end, the fun wouldn't just stop. It burnt everything around him, and now Melissa is serving her time, locked behind bars, a long way from the blood-stained empire she once ruled.
Fue un alivio ser detenida, no regresar a ser salva, a ser detenida, allá no huir. Sí fue un alivio.
For most of her life, Sandra Avila Beltran loved her men the same way she lived, dangerous. In her youth, she had affairs with several high-profile drug lords. She married twice, both husbands, former police commanders, turned drug lords, and both were eventually gunned down by hired assassins. Now, this never slowed her down. By the early 2000s, Sandra wasn't just in love with a drug lord here. She was helping run his business. Her partner at the time, Juan Diego El Tigre Espinosa, was a major player in Colombia's Norte de Valle cartel, moving tons of cocaine through Mexico into the U.S. And while most people in their world would tend to keep a low profile, Sandra and El Tigre lived loud, jet-setting, partying, and moving millions with nothing but charm and the right connections. It was glamorous. Oh, it was dangerous. And for a while, it was fun. But when a 9-ton cocaine shipment was traced back to him, the game changed. September 27, 2007, both Sandra and El Tigre are arrested, and the Queen of the Pacific, once untouchable, was suddenly just another inmate behind bars. But long before prison, Sandra Avila was narco royalty. In 1960, born in a bloodline of kingpins, Sandra was practically raised in the cartel world. Her uncles and cousins ran some of Mexico's most powerful syndicates. One would be Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, the founder of the Guadalajara cartel, so-called godfather of the Mexican drug trade. So, you can imagine, her life was filled with private tutors, Disneyland trips, and counting stacks of cash like it was a game. But Sandra didn't want to wait until adulthood to get her first taste of danger. So by 13, she'd already witnessed her first shootout.
Fue el hecho de un momento se atravesó un carro, nos cerró el paso y se bajaron 2 personas armadas. Se nos pusieron de frente y inició el tiroteo.
By 21, she's dating El Señor de los Cielos himself, Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the Lord of the Skies, one of the most feared drug lords at the time. But Sandra, wasn't just someone's girlfriend here. She played the game like a boss. She builds this reputation for discretion, sharp instincts, and ice-cold control. She never used cocaine herself, said it was the surest way to lose respect in a man's world, and instead she focused on power and respect. And she got them. At her peak, she was organizing tuna boats filled with tons of cocaine, heading north to the U.S. market. And for this, they dubbed her La Reina del Pacifico, the Queen of the Pacific, and the name that followed her everywhere, even behind bars. For years, Sandra outsmarted authorities, but in 2002, her son was kidnapped for ransom. Desperate, she would contact police, something cartel figures never do. He was returned safely, but it put her on the radar. After years of investigations, she was finally arrested alongside El Tigre in 2007. So in court, she would say that she was just a housewife who rented out homes and sold outfits. But prosecutors had other ideas here, and just like that, she had spent the next few years in a prison cell, though in style. Rumor had it that she had 3 maids, wore heels, and hosted dinners, while guards stood by like butlers. While other inmates had to be in crowded common rooms to talk to visitors, Sandra's people were escorted straight to her cell, where her 3 maids would serve food, pour drinks, pass out cigarettes like they're just talking at home. She even managed to get a Botox injection behind bars. But you know what? This kind of luxury doesn't last forever. Her luck was about to run out. August 10th, 2012. Sandra's extradited to the U.S. and flown to Florida to face charges of cocaine possession and trafficking. She eventually pled guilty, not to dealing directly, but to helping El Tigre financially while he moved the product. Court gives her 70 months in prison. Now, her life in a U.S. prison wasn't that glamorous, but Sandra adapted. She found ways to keep up appearances. Mascara, covering up the gray hairs, toilet paper rolls, oils for curling her hair, and whatever lotion she could scrounge up just became part of her improvised beauty routine. Even in solitary, where she spent 2 years, she turned her cell into a newsroom, imagining herself as a radio anchor, reporting elections and politics to keep her mind sharp. It's pretty smart. In 2015, Sandra was released and deported back to Mexico. These days, she's living quietly in Guadalajara, working to get back her lost fortune. And true to form, still surrounded by whispers of mystery and power, Sandra wasn't just a woman next to a king. She was the queen herself. She loved drug lords, yeah, but she was one too. And even behind bars, she made sure the world remembered it.
Yo culpable no, porque nunca le he hecho yo daño a nadie. Remordimiento tampoco, porque yo no he hecho nunca mal. Dolor sí, porque he perdido muchos amigos.
Rosalinda González Valencia permanecerá en la cárcel. Le fue negado un amparo para continuar su proceso en prisión domiciliaria.
She wasn't just the wife of Mexico's most wanted man. She was La Jefa. Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia lived in a luxurious tower in one of Jalisco's wealthiest neighborhoods, driving high-end cars and moving through guarded entrances like royalty. Her husband was none other than Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known to the world as El Mencho, the feared leader of Jalisco New Generation, CJNG. Their life for a time was the definition of cartel power coupled glam. Behind closed doors, it was dinners with cartel leaders, private deals, coded conversations, the kind of wealth that most people can't even picture. But unlike others in her position, Rosalinda wasn't just watching from the sidelines here. She was allegedly running the numbers, managing over 70 businesses tied to cartel operations, and laundering millions. And like many on this list so far, what began as a life of power and privilege ended in handcuffs. So before she was La Jefa, Rosalinda came from humble roots. She was born in rural Michoacan as the eldest, 18 siblings. Her family started out growing avocados, but when the profits didn't cut it, they turned to marijuana and opium poppies. And by the 70s, her relatives had built the Milenio Cartel, precursor to the CJNG. Now, she was married to this other cartel figure at first, but it ended, and she began dating El Mencho. He had once worked at the family's marijuana fields as a guard, and a deport back to Mexico, he joined the local police force and then married Rosalinda in 1996. That union would make him not just part of the family, but head of the empire. Together, they had 3 children, and their criminal empire grew. Rosalinda allegedly helped shape the CJNG's financial empire, earning her a reputation not just as the cartel leader's wife, but as the brains behind the money. Now, things did eventually start to fall apart. In May 2018, Rosalinda was arrested by Mexican Marines outside of a 7-Eleven in Zapopan. Now, she was living pretty large in a luxury high-rise just down the street. Authorities said that she had laundered over 1 billion pesos between 2015 and 16. But still, just a few months later, she would walk free on bail after paying the equivalent of 78,000 US. But this wasn't the end of her problems. Fast forward, November 15, 2021. She's arrested yet again, this time by Mexico's military. Officials call it a significant blow to the financial structure of organized crime. By then, 2 of her children were already behind bars in the US, and Rosalinda was one of the last ties holding CJNG's financial web together. December 2023, she's ultimately convicted, not for drug trafficking, but for failing to report financial transactions tied to a car wash she owned in Puerto Vallarta. Now, the sentence was just 5 years in prison, kind of a slap on the wrist for a woman believed to be amongst the top ranks of one of the most dangerous cartels in the world. Still, Rosalinda is now behind bars, and can she manage to hold on to her power when she walks free?
The wife of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is set to plead guilty tomorrow to helping him run his multi-billion-dollar drug trafficking empire.
January 17, 2019, Emma Coronel sat in the second row, her diamond rings glinting and her red lipstick perfect, while her husband Joaquin El Chapo Guzman fought for his life in court. Across the room, El Chapo's former mistress testified against him, but Emma didn't care. She wore a matching burgundy velvet jacket to El Chapo's that day. It was a statement Emma was telling the entire world. He's still mine. For years, Emma lived like royalty. The former beauty queen wasn't just married to Mexico's most feared drug lord. She was the cartel world's fantasy come to life. Nothing but glamour, loyalty, and power rolled into one. Her life was filled with designer gowns, exotic getaways, million-dollar parties, and a front row seat to the heart of the Sinaloa cartel. But again, as with every woman on this list, that fun didn't last forever. Before the fame, jewelry, and courtroom stares, Emma Coronel Chapo was just a small-town girl. In 1989, born back in California and raised in Durango, Mexico, her father was a cattle rancher and a drug trafficker himself, already tied to El Chapo's operations. And just like that, her fate had already been sealed. She's only 17 when she meets Chapo at a beauty pageant she won. By 18, she's married to one of the most dangerous men on the planet. Despite everything, Emma stayed mostly in the background. No one really suspected she was involved in any kind of cartel operation until Chapo's trial began in the US. That's when she comes out into the spotlight and the world started to realize she may have not been as innocent as she once seemed. During Chapo's trial in New York, Emma showed up every day. Reporters called her Cartel Queen. She would always dress in these high-end heels and perfectly tailored outfits, flashing smiles and side eyes in equal measure. Some would see loyalty, others would see performance. But you know what? No one looked away, including federal investigators. February 22nd, 2021, Emma's arrested at Dulles International Airport and charged with drug trafficking, money laundering, and helping El Chapo escape back in 2015 from prison. Court documents revealed that she had passed his messages, helped plan that infamous tunnel escape, and even carried out cartel operations while he was in custody. Now, some said that she surrendered voluntarily that day, but her lawyers denied it. Either way, she was in custody now. And this time, it wasn't about standing by her man. It's about surviving. Emma ended up pleading guilty to 3 federal charges and was given 3 years in prison, later reduced to 31 months, as prosecutors noted her cooperation. The judge came out and said, hey, she was just a teenager when she married El Chapo, so she served her time quietly in a federal prison in Texas and was released back in September 2023. But the story doesn't end there. In 2025, less than 2 years after walking out of prison, Emma makes a comeback. Not into crime, but into fashion. She launches a shapewear line, poses for press photos, and re-enters social media like nothing had ever happened. Just months earlier, she'd even walked a runway at a Milan Fashion Week show in a wedding gown, an appearance that sparked outrage and fascination in equal measure. Maybe she's sending a message that no matter what, she was still his, El Chapo's wife, even with a lifetime of bars between them. But in the end, Emma Coronel really had it all. The lavish life, cartel king, a front row to one of the biggest criminal empires in the world. For a while, it looked kinda fun. But like every woman on this list, loyalty came with some price. Penthouses turned into prison cells. The glamorous photo shoots were replaced by mugshots.